So our guest today is the lovely Laura O'Shaughnessy. Now, Laura is a TCA graduate, as I would say 99% of our guests are, because we like to showcase the exceptional talent of those people who train with us. But she's also a coach who primarily works with women over 40 to create what she calls their greatest chapter. So perhaps we might dive into what that means to Laura and her guests and her clients, I should say, where greatest chapter is concerned as we dive in. But in her coaching business, she combines her deep coaching expertise and knowledge with her, as she calls it, business savvy, to help coaches stand out with confidence and with clarity. So I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. It really does align with the feedback that I'm getting for so many of you in supporting you to really grow your business that stands out and attracts the quote unquote right client for you, because you are not for everyone and everyone is not for you. So it's really important that you attract the right type of client for the type of coaching that you do. So without further ado, Laura, welcome to Coaching Conversations. It feels like we've been talking about getting together for such a long time and now we're here.
It really does. You're so far ahead with your planning that this did start quite a long time ago. Can I just say you are such a professional, Sharon? That was just so flawless. I think you're note perfect in your communications every time. Thank you for having me here. And it's a delight to be part of this community. You know, I feel like I am amongst peers. And if there's anything that I can share today that helps people, then that's a job done. Because I remember being in those, you know, sat here sort of listening on the journey, and then straight after the journey as well, sort of at the starting line, working out, oh, where do I go from here? How do I do this? So that's great to be here for me. And with a background in marketing that I've been sort of blending into my coaching, then I probably do have a little bit of insight I can share.
I'm sure you've got lots of insight, not a little bit of insight. And the journey for you has been an interesting one, because when we started talking, you were living in the UK and now you are living in Spain. How did all that happen?
So this is like we do with our clients, like our follow our why story, really. So we used to live over here and then we went back to England, and that's where I did my training actually with you guys over there, and built up my community and my clients over in England. And then we decided as a family that the chance that we had to be together was actually strangely over here, because my husband was doing a lot of commuting. So we've bedded ourselves in this new world, and the children are thriving in new schools, and it's not been smooth, I can tell you that now, but we're in a culture that we love, a lifestyle that we love, and you know, we enjoy getting up out of bed every morning to do it. So I am now in not a dissimilar position to some of these people that are here. You know, I'm now rebuilding a business. I'm in a completely new environment with completely different needs, and I'm having to check in and apply what I know all over again. So there's lots of starting lines in coaching. You know, your clients don't tend to stay with you for 5 years. It's like physio, isn't it? When people are strong enough and feeling up and ready to go, then it's a cyclical trend that we need to recruit more clients. And that is exactly what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because, as I say, the relocation, and I think, you know, what you've demonstrated beautifully there is that with our skills and expertise, actually we can we can create our businesses from anywhere in the world, working with anyone in the world as well, which I think, you know, is truly a wonderful gift, really. But it's also, you know, like for me, you know, I've rebranded, and you know, I work with very different clients now than I did when I qualified, which was like just over 16 years ago. So we are constantly developing and changing. So all of what you're going to be speaking about today, I think, is relevant for everyone wherever they are in their journey. So let me go back a little bit, with your permission, Laura. And before you became a coach, you spent over 20 years in branding and marketing. What made you decide to bring those two worlds together?
Yeah. Okay. Well, like lots of people, I feel like I've always been coaching. You know, when I did my disc profile, I'm the motivator, and I love hearing people's challenges and scenarios and issues. And I think I'm always that person at a dinner party that sat there unpacking something with somebody at the end of the night. So that's just been a natural calling. And I think lots of people on the journey will have found that that's why they're in your capable hands right now. But also the skills are actually quite transferable. So active listening is a really important part of being in a marketing agency or a branding agency. You have to take your ego out of it, take your agenda out of it, and you have to listen. If you're ever going to do a good job, you have to sit with a blank piece of paper and listen, and you don't know what's going to walk in. And so from that regard, actually, coaching and the whole marketing world isn't that different, because it's about sitting there and understanding what's going on and tuning in. So those things into consideration. The other really big practical one was 4 kids and a husband that works away, and the idea that coaching would allow me to design my own life, whereas working till midnight in an agency doesn't really cut it after a certain point. So it's a beautiful world that we're all stepping into. You know, we can cordon our hours off to work in a way that is logical but kind to ourselves. We can design a 4-day week if we want, to nobody's detriment. And that was very alluring for me. And it's something that I really lean into. You know, I really make sure I've got my boundaries on when I work, and that I do enjoy that space that I've designed into my own life.
I love that. I love that. And, that's in true alignment with your why. You spoke about that right at the start in your sort of move back to Spain. So, yeah, really interesting. Let's rewind a little bit more. What was it? What was it that called you or motivated you to start your journey to become a coach?
I think there was an attraction, which some people may not see right now, but there must be in there somewhere, an attraction to run my own business. You know, we all love the coaching journey. It was transformational for me doing the qualification. I learned so much about myself, and I was always interested in helping others. But it's always quite a turn on to know that you're at this one life stage where you can create something new from scratch. And I think because it's overwhelming and it's scary and you don't know where you're getting clients from, it's easy to see that as something that's against us wanting to get out there. But it probably in your subconscious attracted you to getting out there. And it certainly was me. And the idea of creating something from scratch that's all mine and going out there and helping people, at the true heart of it all is an idea of serving others, and I just really look, the thing that happens after sessions is not me checking my bank balance. It is that moment where somebody sends you a message saying, oh my God, that's changed everything, or that light bulb moment in a session. And that's the true heart of it all, is that change that you see in others. That's a drug, isn't it? That's just such a good feeling. So that's it's at the very heart of it. But building something new and creating my own life was a real big attraction.
Yeah, that's really inspiring. I love that, Laura. So your actual niche is around, you talk about helping women to create their greatest chapter yet. What does that phrase mean to you personally? I guess you're sort of alluding to it really in everything you've shared so far, but I don't want to make any assumptions.
Yeah. Well, I think for anybody who's out there now thinking about who to coach and how to coach, you have to start with your who, and I went out there at the starting blocks coaching for anybody, all for all. And I do not think that's a bad idea, by the way. Coach anybody, get experience, take anybody on board, see what you like. But then there's a point where that isn't attractive, is it? In 100,000 marketing messages a day and somebody's saying, I can coach anyone.
Yeah.
So, it's not enigmatic. It's not calling out to the person that you want to coach. So I think what happens at that point, and what happened for me, is thinking, who do I want to coach and who can I best serve? And there is something that may naturally happen, which is you serve people that are in your circumstance with the sort of the life stage piece, etc. It's not necessarily who you don't necessarily have to align like that. But for me, I definitely have been through a journey getting to a midlife chapter. And I definitely see that people who are successful and have been successful can find it harder when they are serving people above them, maybe parents, or supporting others, and serving children beneath them. So you're sort of in this sandwich. And that really was a calling for me, amongst my peers, amongst clients that were just suddenly coming to me. And actually creating the best chapter is about, for me, it's about working with what you've got. We're all trying to throw everything in the bin and try again. And actually a real big thing for me is seeing things with a new lens, helping my clients look at what they have with a fresh lens. And then let's look at what you haven't got. So it's a bit of both. It's life and lens. It's looking at the real things that need to change, but also your mindset and your love and appreciation of what you've already created. And those two together, I think when they're in sync, I think that's the best chapter yet.
Yeah. Gosh, that's really powerful. You mentioned the word lens there. If we sort of, step back into the fact that, you've got that blend of coaching and branding. What did you notice when you first stepped into the coaching world from a branding perspective? What stood out for you?
Well, from a peer perspective, everybody was flapping around going, oh my God, I thought it'd be easier than this. That was my first, and like, I think we just need to call it, we all get to the best analogy is I think we all get to the finishing line and we've put so much hard work and effort in and we so deserve a pat on the back. We get our certificate and we so deserve to say, look at us, look what we've done. But the challenge is that finishing line just melts and you are then at a start line. And I think the biggest thing I observed is that sort of everybody around, I was at the start line too, and I was finding it hard, Sharon, and I've got a background in marketing. So I think that was my biggest observation. That was the lens. That was the realization for me that it's really hard to then switch your mindset and go, oh, it's not about me now, how well I've done. Right, who do I want to serve? How do I want to do this?
Let's dive into that then, because that's really what we're here to support today, so that we can, all of us, regardless of where we are in our journey, can take something away that is going to be helpful and useful in sort of marketing and branding and, whatever that means to all of us, because it'll mean different things. So we know that lots of us are challenged with the idea of, and I'm going to put it in inverted collars, selling themselves, and, you use the word serve rather than sell. And that word sits more comfortably with me as well. What shifts in mindset help us as coaches to move from sort of that feeling that we're just doing a load of self-promotion to actually, that sort of authentic sort of service?
I think that's a brilliant question. Okay, so it's about, if you can visualize standing there at that start line and it's all about you and you've got your banner and you're like, I'm here, I'm ready, I coach, I offer 60-minute sessions, I can provide a safe space. All of that is about us. And if we can take all of that, put it to one side, and you can imagine taking that layer off, put it to one side, that is getting out of your own way. And then you're there and you're like, what is it that I do and who is it for? And I think the first thing that we have to do is think about who is it for and what. And our who and our what, if we then lean into those, we have removed ourselves. We have removed ourselves because we're looking at actually who it's about and what they need. So if my client, for example, was in her 40s, she's overwhelmed, her kids are driving her insane, she probably needs a new job, she's fed up, she's tired, she's not got enough energy. When I send a message saying, I've qualified at coaching, sorry, I'm not very good at social media, bear with me, or I give you 60 minutes space, she's not going to listen. That's not going to cut it. So learning about the who, this person, and what all of their challenges are, is a really good place to start. And what is that person saying? So a really good technique is to think about all the things that your person would say when they were having a coffee with their friend. And it's a really good exercise to do, because what that person isn't saying is, I'd love somebody to hold space for me for 60 minutes. They're not saying, I'd love a coach who's just qualified. I'd love someone who's not that confident with social media, but they're having a go. They're going to say, I want somebody to help me sort this crap out. I wish I had a magic wand. I wish I had a pause button. Make a big list. And it's really quite a fun exercise of all the things they're actually saying. And then, to get out of your own way, talk to that. So don't think about, what do I need to say on social media today? How do I sell myself today? If you talk to that list, you're out the way. If you have something out there on social media or in the workshop you're running or out in the street when you're on the school run, talking to somebody about, I really help my clients sort their overwhelm problems in 3 simple steps. Or a really effective thing about working with me is the ability to see through the chaos. I really help my clients through the chaos by doing X, Y, Z. And all of a sudden you're out of the picture because you're thinking about your who and your what. And that would be my first step, really, in trying to change the lens.
I mean, that is what I love about that, Laura, is that you cut through everything, and it's just it's a simple step, but it gives so much clarity. It's powerful.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I think it's about simplifying it to the best of your abilities, and then getting on with it and having a go.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm going to challenge everyone who's listening here, to really be thinking as a sort of a first step around their who and their what. Write those words down, who and what, and then do that lovely fun activity that Laura has just shared. If you're a fly on the wall, and that particular person was having a coffee and maybe a little bit of a rant or a sound off to their best friends about their challenges, about their issues, about their problems, what would they be? And then you can talk into that, because absolutely, that's sort of being able to solve them. Let's think about branding then, because that's another thing that sort of lots of coaches talk about. What are the biggest branding, let's use the word mistakes. What are the biggest branding mistakes that maybe coaches or new coaches make? And in your expert opinion, how could they avoid them?
I think the biggest mistake is overthinking it and actually overinvesting in it, to be honest with you. My husband's just setting up a new business at the moment, and we are both marketeers. We have both done this for years and years. And I now coach, so I've got this duality to it. And we're using AI to create some identity so that we don't have to invest in a big agency so I think the first thing is use the tools at your disposal. Don't overthink it. I know lots of people who go, I can't get out there until I've got this sorted and my website sorted and that. Don't make it something that prohibits you from starting. Okay. And the best tools that you have are your common sense and your intuition. It's about using what you have at your disposal to get moving forward, because people aren't going to, it's hard to get a brand completely wrong, believe it or not. It's just making sure that it's consistent and then you get out. So making sure that you don't make silly mistakes, as in go for something too lofty that really doesn't work with what you're trying to do. Make sure it aligns to what you do, but please don't be afraid of just getting on with it. As silly as it sounds. And I know people out there that have been coaching for years without a logo, without an identity, and it's a comfort blanket and we want it, but don't mistake the fact that you can do it without. You don't need to invest thousands and thousands to get you off that starting block. That will just hold you back.
I think that's a real common misconception, so that, all of these things have to be in place before we start. And I think also it's good to reflect on the fact that, we can change it if it doesn't work,
I'm on my second wave. So I think that it's really nice to get something together and almost have yourself like a soft launch period where you're really trying to become a good coach as well. Because in that first 6 months, you really want to find the techniques that work for you and your style and where you sit and how you talk to people. And so the branding piece is just one bit of it. So don't let it slow you down. I did 6 months to a year with a logo and the palette that worked for me at the time. And then I knew my stuff. And then I was ready to go out there with a completely fresh identity.
It's interesting that you were saying, your husband is launching his new business and you're both got a background of marketing, and, you're not investing like, lots and lots of money in this. So if you were talking to sort of a coach who had maybe limited time and budget, where would you suggest they start with their marketing efforts?
So marketing is all about, in the short time that we've got, but marketing is all about fishing and funnels. Bear with me, Sharon. But ultimately, start to do any marketing, you're fishing in a pond, aren't you? So you're trying to send a message out and you're only sending it out to X number of people in a pond. So if you have 100 followers on Instagram and you spend hours on end putting content out, just be aware you're only fishing in a pond of 100. Okay, so understanding this idea of audience is critically important at your start line. So if you put a flyer up in your local shop, it will only be seen by X number of people. And starting to think with the business head on is really important, because then we talk about how many people you can convert. And then it's really important. It's not personal when your one post to 50 people didn't convert you a client. So the first thing, I'll get to funnels, but the fishing thing is about making this pond as big as you can. So the thing I would focus on is how to get in front of as many people as you can. And so thinking about not spreading yourself too thinly on every platform. So perhaps it's Instagram and LinkedIn. They seem really, they seem comfortable places for me. That doesn't mean it's right for everybody. Some people are really comfortable with TikTok, and that may be aligned with their audience. But where I'm at, the people that I help, they're very happy on LinkedIn and they're very happy on Instagram. Instagram's when they're on the downtime and they're a bit of doom scrolling while the kids are in the bath. And LinkedIn's where the more sharper professional daytime message. So with that in mind, I think the first thing I would do is thinking, how can I get my audience wider? How can I grow the number of people I'm talking to? And with that is not being afraid to even pay to get some of your posts out there, because this is a business and we're trying to reach. So you alone cannot build this by praying for the algorithms. And I think it's just an honest fact that we have to accept, which is we may have to make that pond bigger by paying to get our ads seen. And it's certainly worked for me to grow my base that way. And so I think that's the first thing. Just thinking about the pond, and also just how do I hustle then to make that pond bigger? Like, how do I get gritty? How do I get in front of more people? And also, let's not forget that getting in front of more people may mean getting away from the computer screen. We sort of think that because we learned online and we do everything on Zoom, that everything is going to happen through a sort of anonymous profile on Instagram. I think really getting bigger fish in a nicer pond will come from always be coaching at the school gates, or when you're commuting, or when you're at the water stand at work, or whatever it may be. So thinking about it in terms of exposure in the pond is a really good analogy. I think that helps.
I really love that, Laura. And what you were saying about, the sort of our digital selves versus our in-person selves, over COVID, and, before COVID, I was coaching on Zoom anyway. So it wasn't difficult for me to pivot my business. But what it did inadvertently do, which was a bit of a surprise to me, but it happened, is that I then stepped away from being comfortable networking in a room. Now, anybody who knows me or knows my disc profile might find that quite surprising. So I really challenged myself this year to get back into networking rooms. And it's been a challenge, it's, that comfortableness of being behind a screen lulls us into a sense of security, I guess. So it's interesting that you say that, that widen the pond, and the pond isn't just social media. It's at the school gates, it's at a networking session, it's when you're chatting to somebody, just using that lovely curiosity and listening skills that we have as coaches to our advantage whenever we can, because you never know who you're talking to, do you?
It's the listening, isn't it, Sharon? Like when you stand there, I keep saying the school gates, it's just current for me at the moment, but what I don't do is say, hi, I'm a coach, but what I will do is tune in and always be coaching, because when somebody says something and you hear them, then rather than like selling at them, you are able to just ask a couple of the right questions that shows you're a brilliant coach. We have to be locked into the mindset of being a brilliant coach at all times. And that's where we stop selling ourselves, where by just doing it and being a coach, and that's how we sort of naturally sell.
Yeah, I think that is really, really powerful. It's the action as opposed to anything else. Laura, you also mentioned about funnels. Tell us a little bit about that.
A bit dry, isn't it? But I think it's
not at all.
A couple of marketing principles, really. So that's the pond one about fishing, because if you get that in your mindset, you'll know that you're not going to take it personally when you don't convert on your audience of 50 on Instagram. So that's that one. Funnels. So in marketing, you start up here and there's a funnel that comes down. If you imagine at the bottom is the gold, it's the client, but you have to convert, and we have to understand that one piece of communication at the top of this funnel will not convert, okay? So our marketing activity from cold down to this hot lead at the very bottom has to be multifaceted. So we cannot rely alone on a couple of great three carousel posts on Instagram. This is not personal to you. You have to understand a complete appreciation of the process down. Now, if I was buying something like, I don't know, great face cream, I don't go on and see a quick Instagram post and then buy. I may also talk to a friend. I may also read an article in a magazine. I may also just have a think about it. And we have to think the same with coaching. So people are not just converting on a cold post, they are talking to other people, which is why understanding and thinking about the layers of our communication are critically important. And understanding that up here, we're talking to lots of people, and then it gets more narrow and more narrow until we're in this one-to-one beautiful space with somebody who we can convert. And that's the gold. And they are, have hope to anybody who's not yet got a big client base, have hope, because then they're the people that will just keep helping us moving on with their referrals and their friends that they know. Once you get down to that point, it is gold.
Love that. What would you say then, with that in mind, what would be one small action that people that are listening here today that they could take to sort of start to move those people from the top of the funnel just sort of a little bit further down?
Absolutely. So I think that I would really strongly recommend people look into, I can't advocate whether you should or shouldn't, but look into paying for leads. So it really fueled me at the start of my business, which was I'm injecting things at the top. I'm growing my email database. I am sending posts out. I'm making reels. I'm doing what I can up here. But there's somewhere further down, there are people who've had conversations with their friend. They've been researching for a while, and they have gone on platforms to say, find me a coach. Now, those people are converted for you into looking. So rather than you trying to tell them they need a coach, you can go on these platforms and meet people who are actively searching for a coach. And it's down to personal preference. Some people may sit here going, well, I'm not going to pay for a lead. I'm not going to invest in this with money. But for me, it really helped me get clients. It really helped me go in there, start practicing selling on the call, just the patter, the elevator pitch, if you like. And at that point, because those people are ready, you are literally down at the bottom. You're in that tiny end stage with people who are ready to be converted, if you like. That would be the one thing I would advise anybody today to explore is, how can I meet people who have already in the mindset of wanting to be coached?
Yeah, that makes sense. And what about, we spoke a little bit about the brand.
Yeah.
What maybe one small action could people take this week to make their brand just a little bit more magnetic and stand out?
Okay, so let's think about magnetic. So the key thing, I think we've said it already, is that you cannot be magnetic to all. You cannot appeal to all. And if you are, then you're a unicorn. Okay, so the second-hand car salesman who lands it isn't going to appeal to me necessarily, because I'm just not in that space. Okay, so let's think about what magnetic is and what you think enigmatic is, and work to that. So what is attractive to your client? And then at that point, we have to think about how was that attractive, and perhaps you are your dream client. So if you are coaching someone who's at a career change, then talk to that person that you may have been in that position. So at that point, it's about thinking about, what are my brand values? So consistency is key. So what are the values that sit behind this brand of mine, whether it's authenticity or courage or fun? Thinking about the values and using those values in every single communication that you put out there. So you create consistent brand communications. You sound the same. Think about the tone then. What words does this brand always, how do I sound that makes me enigmatic? And then also think about how you can authentically project, because you are the brand. So you are always on when you are the brand. I've never seen you, Sharon. You are enigmatic. You literally rock it at every single moment. You may turn up and say, I've got a bit of a cold, everybody, but you never say, I feel weak and vulnerable today, guys. And because that's not our job as the front of the business to do that. So we have to represent our brand in the way that we think our clients or prospects want to see us. So, it's us as well. It's how we communicate at every single junction. And so from a brand identity perspective, that's how our logo looks, our colors look. It's the whole package that needs to just line up.
Thank you for that. It's really kind of you to say. Okay, so there's a lot there already that I think people can take away from the thing. There's lots and lots of gold nuggets in there. I want to rewind a little bit, because you mentioned about sort of different platforms and things. So just for the benefit of people listening who perhaps don't really know what you and I understand by platforms and directories and things like that. Maybe, do you know a couple that you could perhaps name that,
Yeah,
might
sure.
make sense to people so they
Yeah.
know?
So,
Yeah.
there's one out there that you pay. So there's different models. So I'll give you one where you pay monthly. So there's the Life Coach Directory where you pay a monthly subscription, and that they then allow you to put a profile out there. So anybody who's looking for a coach can read your profile, see if that works. They allow you to write articles, and that basically puts you in an index, and it puts you up there somewhere where people are looking. So you've turned to the other side there. You are in their market. It's a marketplace, isn't it? And that gets you inside the market doors rather than outside trying to find somebody who's ready to buy. So that's one. And I have had people call me from that. So it's quite a nice one because it's not, it's you sit back once you've paid your, I think it may be something like 18, 19 pounds a month. And then you sit back, and I can't say that the phone was burning, but I definitely have had calls in and have converted through that platform. But then there are things like marketplaces such as Bark, whereby trades, all sorts of different trades are available, and people go on there and say, I'm looking for a coach, and they will then have to put the criteria, whether it's online, in person, they may even say the budget, but there's a certain set of criteria. And the way that works from our perspective as a coach is we then look at our leads, we put our profile in, and we get emails. So we get emails saying, this looks like is this of interest to you? And at that point, you have to exchange your credits to call that person. And whether you sell to them or not, or convert them or not, you have exchanged your tokens, if you like. You're at the fair now, you put your tokens in the machine, whether the claw figure whether it gives the machine, gives you the teddy or not. But it's a beautiful way to get a call in, and to I wouldn't say build the business alone on that, because what I've ended up that my clients have the most longevity, the clients that share the same energy as me, that are the longer serving clients, have actually come from other ways as well. But it was a real confidence boost for me to know that I could make some phone calls and win some business.
Thanks, Laura. I think that's really helpful. And just to put to the other side of the coin, you don't have to do that.
You don't have to do that. Of course not.
Not at all. And of course, I haven't done any. I've never been on a directory or anything like that. But what I have done in the past, which is something that people listening can also consider, and I'm sure, Laura, you would have gone here next anyway, is there are some organisations out there where you can be an associate. Exactly. So let's say you're a neurodiverse, you coach in the neurodiverse area. There are organisations such as, for example, Genius Within, who specialise in that particular area. And if that's your specialism, you can apply to them. And if they accept you, you become one of their coaches. And a little bit like Laura was saying, if you're a match, then you refer, and then the company gets certain amount and you get a certain amount. So there are lots of sort of different sort of areas around that. Okay, so there's some ideas there. Let's think then a little bit around the role of self-belief. What role does self-belief play in showing up confidently as a coach and a business owner, for example?
Oh, it's everything, isn't it? We have to find the fire in our bellies. And I think back to your point about being online, I think sometimes it's hard to raise our energy when we're just behind a screen. And I think the importance of getting out there and being amongst people is critical in this. I really do. And to your point about once you know what you want to do, you can get around those people. Now I know who I want to serve, then there are opportunities where I can go and see, there are audiences where I go and do stuff for free and I get to meet these people, and that, but the self-belief piece for me becomes easier when I move off a chair and start to move my body and start to step into it and start to really see the whites of people's eyes. And we don't, or let's be honest, we don't wake up every day and feel up here, and some lives, all of us, our lives are like this, we're up some moments and we're not the next. And so when I say self-belief, I don't mean that you should be high-fiving yourself every moment in the mirror, but when you do feel those waves of confidence, ride them and make those the moments when you act, when those are the moments when you call people or turn up to events, like self-belief is just leaning back into that why and understanding that the reason you got that certificate, the reason you get that qualification is because you are good enough. And look at the data. You know, we're all coaches, and what we would do with our clients is say, where are you? Where do you want to get to with this business? Now let's look at the gap, and let's look at the data and the evidence and all those case studies you've got that show that you really are brilliant. And we have to lean into those points of reference as we would do with our clients. And don't be afraid to get a coach is the other thing I'd say if you're struggling with your self-belief. You know, we should lean into having a coach. We should get reassurance and bolstering, just like we give our clients. You know, I get coached because it really helps me remain true to myself and make me see that I have got potential that's worth sharing with the world.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, Laura. You know, it's really important for us all, regardless of where we are in our journey, to have a coach, and also to get supervision, because they're two different things.
Gosh, yeah.
You may decide to have a business mentor. You know, there are lots of things that we can do to support our growth and our self-belief. And going back to what I said to you right at the beginning about getting out into those networking sessions, you know, and I challenge everyone who's listening, don't go to coaches' networking sessions. You're just surrounding yourself with people that are, it's lovely, and you come away with a really lovely, warm, fuzzy feeling, but challenge yourself to go to networking events where your potential clients are going to be. That's the real challenge. That's when you can really shine and sort of step out and open up. And you'll really be playing with your sort of self-belief and confidence then, which is really nice. And it stops you going into that comparison mode. Oh, they're more experienced than me, or they're more qualified than me, or they've been qualified longer than me. You know, that really does not help with your self-belief and your self-growth. So challenge yourself to get out to there's loads of Chamber of Commerce and business breakfasts and women in business, and you know, all of those sort of networking events where your potential clients will be. Network with coaches, but do it for social, not for growth. I think that's just my opinion. Doesn't make it true. I don't know what you think about that, Laura.
I completely agree. I completely agree that if we can almost create too many coffee mornings out of the whole thing if we're not careful. and we can, you know, we can just sort of end up in a situation where we're talking about what we want and what we don't necessarily have yet. So I think you have to get in that twitchy, uncomfortable feeling. You know, I had a twitchy, uncomfortable feeling this morning. I was like, oh, but it's also can be excitement, right? So like that feeling is also, it's a bit of a buzz. And so if you can get that energy moving and get into those uncomfortable situations, that's where the magic is. It really genuinely is. And everybody's got a bit of sparkle in them. You know, there is a chance for everybody. It's a massive, massive market here. There is space for everybody. You know, so it's just about making sure that you own your truth. You don't compare yourself to others, and you get value aligned fairly early on. Really important to get aligned and get out there with your truth.
I love that, Laura, and your mindset there is very in alignment with mine. You know, that abundant mindset. You know, I do believe that there is enough work out there for everyone. Have you ever noticed that those coaches who say, "Oh, the market's flooded," they're not busy.
Yeah.
They're not busy because they're not attracting in the energy to grow their business. Those coaches who have that abundant mindset that challenge themselves to get out there and, you know, really grow and develop are the ones that are growing and developing their business. So the mindset comes into that a lot, in my opinion. Laura, where haven't we explored that would be useful for us to explore next?
Oh, so we've talked about the who, the what. I think, tell you what I can give you that might be quite interesting. I think when people go to social media, this is things that I hear a lot is kind of the actual detail of what to put out there. And I think I can give you a little rule of thumb on that might be really useful, because I think, as I talked about at the beginning, you know, like just saying I've got my qualification or I'm not quite sure what I'm doing. So what should you be saying and what should you be doing? And maybe if I give a little guide on that, it would be helpful. So
Fabulous, Laura.
Once you've got don't overthink the logo. And if you're not sure what to market yourself as and what to brand yourself as, use your name, just to say, you know, if you are struggling, then you as a coach with life coach under your name is enough. Okay. So get started with that. If you're struggling with a name, you don't have to be Enigma Coaching 2025. You don't have to be anything to just get out there with a name and something that's logical and aligns. Okay, so if we suggest that we're going to use a social media platform and we're not going to just talk about us, what do we talk about? So my rule of thumb for this, and for anybody to try it moving forward, is 50% of your content should be I see you. Okay, and by that what I mean is I understand you, a bit like those things we talked about before, talking to the coffee break moments, talking to, I see you are overwhelmed, and backing it up with facts. Research shows that 93% of women are overwhelmed right now, and here's 3 top tips. Or here's a great quote. You know, it's not going to convert your client a great quote by Gandhi, but a collective of this kind of content shows that you see people. So I would aim for a rule of thumb of 50% of I see you. And then the rest of my content, whether it's in reel form or it's pictures or it's words, whatever it may be, would be divided between I serve you and you see me. So I serve you is, I am actually going to tell you what I sell now. So maybe 30% of your content or 25%, depending on how comfortable you are with this, is here's what I've got. Whether it's a bundle price of X, or you don't want to talk about your prices. So it's get in touch with to find out about my bundle prices or my course or my one-to-ones, talking about what you offer, okay? Because we're not trying to be influencers. So if we wanted to be influencers, we'd just be doing that first piece. You know, like I see you guys, I see you, here's some quirky quotes. We are trying to launch a business. So aiming for, about 25, 30% of content that actually serves, I serve you. And then the final bit, this is where the personal brand comes in. You see me. So then look at how you can show bits about you that let people in, because being enigmatic and magnetic, like we talked about before, people are going to have to fall in love with you a little bit and see that you're it. You've done it. You're doing it. You're working on yourself. You are living, breathing proof that you're not the finished article, but you believe in coaching. So for me, anybody that's seen any of my content, I will share the odd thing with my kids, and they are my why. I will show the dogs and the trees because I'm a tree hugger. And, I will put like silly, giddy moments, because if you're attracted to that, I'm attracted to you too. And I want to work with you too. If I can help you light the flame in your belly because you also get giddy, then we're onto something. So that would be my top tip, I think, today is think about how to strategize your content. So think about not just being some sort of influencer that puts quotes out there, because they don't convert, but 50% of that stuff and an article and whatever else you've got in your armory to show you really understand these people. And then divide the rest between selling to them and selling yourself a little bit.
That's brilliant. That's a really sort of sound advice and sort of sound tips. And you've shared so much, Laura. It's been so helpful and useful. As we start to wrap up, I'm going to ask you 2 questions. And the first question is, if you were to meet yourself now, when you were at the beginning of your journey, what would you tell yourself?
Oh, wow, that's brilliant, Sharon. Okay. Yeah, I love that. At the beginning of the journey, do you know what? I honestly, and it gets really personal, I've been on a massive, lots has happened in my life over the journey, and lots of people that are going through your course have had the same, some big life changes, some not great, some great. And so I actually look back on that chapter and go, wow. So on a personal note, I'll be like, well done you for getting through all that and coming out the other end. But that's just the timescale thing. But I would applaud myself for applying what I know and being sensible and pragmatic, because I went round like that a little bit at the beginning. And then in the last 6 months to a year, I've just really leveled out and used common sense, and it's really helped. And I just say, well done and keep going, because I think I'm at the beginning. I think you're also beginning to be coaching, but I now feel like I've had the bolstering from good mentoring, good supervision, good coaching to keep this thing alive. And I now feel like I'd say to myself, it's all coming. It's just lighting up, girl. So keep going.
Oh, I love that. Love that. Just lighting up, girl. Keep going. Yeah. That sounds like the sort of thing I tell myself.
Was it?
Oh, Laura, this has been such a fantastic conversation and so deep. It's not been surface level. You've really taken people on some real practical tips and things. So we've spoken a little bit about social media. Where can people find you if they want to sort of find out a little bit more about you? Where do you hang out online?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram. I'm on Instagram every day. I'm always posting a little something. And that's the Good Vibrations Project. And I'm also on LinkedIn. I've just, this is a real life thing, isn't it? It's all about tasks. I've just written a chunk of LinkedIn content for the next couple of months. You just have to treat all this marketing stuff as part of your job. Don't overthink it. Like once you've got your plan about who and you what, get on with writing the content. It's a task. And so I've just done more because I'm ready to do quite a bit more on LinkedIn. So they're my two little places that you can find me. And I'm going to be really honest on LinkedIn because I just find that there's lots of samey stuff out there. And so I think it's time to just, people talk about the personal brand of it. I think it's time to just show a bit more of myself on there. So I'm quite excited about that.
Yeah, I love that, Laura, because you're right. In the world of social media, there's a lot of beige.
Yeah.
And we're not going to attract clients if we're just beige and we're saying the same old thing as everybody else. So
if we don't attract some, isn't it? We don't need that many clients to do well at this.
Yeah, exactly right.
Off and by hugging trees, that's fine. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, because we are not for everyone and everyone's not for us. So yeah, it's about attracting those right people. Laura, this has been absolutely fascinating. I've loved it. And it's the Good Vibrations Project on LinkedIn as well as Instagram.
So on LinkedIn, I'm me. So Laura O'Shaughnessy. Yeah, I think that's really so I have the thing about LinkedIn, you can have your professional account, and I just feel like me as a professional on my journey. So where all the chapters blend, you can see that me as a marketing, through my marketing career, and here as I'm a coach, no shame, no closing doors. And that's how I decided to go out on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Thank you, Laura. Well, please do get in touch with Laura if you want to find out a little bit more or follow her and see the sort of things that she does.
I love that. Please and I'll always answer back. So like get in touch because I love replying. I will always be in touch back with you.
Oh, fantastic. Please do also write down anything that you're taking away to make sure you hold yourself accountable. We would love you to share a word that just describes your experience of today's conversation before we log off and say goodbye. So just scan that QR code and just share a word. And you might even decide just to share in the chat box what it is that you're deciding to take away. But thank you again, Laura. It's been really inspirational, practical as well. It's you've made it very sort of simple without being simplistic, practical, easy steps to be going away and thinking about when it comes to developing ourselves and marketing our practice. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody who joined us here on Coaching Conversations this month. I hope you've taken away something that has been helpful and useful for you. And please do make sure you take away one action point from today as well. And remember to join us again next month when we continue our series of developing ourselves and our business, where we're speaking to Mike Gard and how we can use ChatGPT to support us in our coaching businesses. But from me, from Laura, and from Catherine, and the whole team here at the Coaching Academy, thanks again for joining us. See you next month. Take care.